Welcome back to part 2 of Dinosaurs in the Backroom. But before I continue, I'd just like to mention to remember to like and subscribe and to also share, as it really helps out the channel. And remember to comment, as any comments put in the bottom of the video will definitely put into consideration and might become a future video. Alright, on with the video. But before I continue, I'd just like to mention to please go watch part 1, as half this won't make sense, but I will have a quick recap just to go over all the dinosaurs and monsters that will be put in the back rooms, and I'll be going over their stats a little again in terms of the dinosaurs, and I'll just say which monsters they've gone against, and not saying if they've lost or won, because you need to watch the part 1 for that, and I'll be saying what monsters they'll be going up against next, obviously. Okay, so starting off with the dinosaurs, we've got Allosaurus euperennis, a 7.5 meter long and a 4.5 meter tall dinosaur that weighed 1.3 tons. We've also got Dilophosaurus weatherstilly, it's already starting again. That reached around 7 meters long and 2 meters tall and was about 1.1 tons at largest. By the way, all these dinosaurs had their largest estimate. Styracosaurus albertariensis is a 5.5 meter long and 1.8 meter tall dinosaur, that weighed about 2.9 tons, so basically 3 tons at largest. And then there's Deinonychus anthriopeus, I probably butchered that name once again, with a 3.4 meter long body and a 1.6 meter tall body. It was very small compared to the others and also weighed a lot less, being 0.1 tons. And as mentioned in the first video, that's 11 times lighter than Dilophosaurus, which would be the lightest one here if it wasn't for the Deinonychus. Okay, moving on to the monsters. So as mentioned, there are a couple monsters the dinosaurs have gone through. And when I say gone through, it doesn't mean they won, it just means they've gone up against. And by the way, just a quick summary on the rules as well. If a dinosaur dies in a battle, it doesn't mean it actually dies, it just means it die in that scenario, and we move on and all the dinosaurs go against each individual monster by themselves at one at a time. And depending on how well they do, they'll get a point from 1 to 10. 0 if they were to die in that certain situation and or scenario. Whoever has the most points at the end of the 2-part series wins. Let's find out who shall win, shall we? So in order of the monsters that they've already gone through, it's the Kane's Pixel Monster, the Duller, the Hound, and the Skin Stealer. And today, to end the series, for now, you never know, I might do a season 2 part 1, they'll be going up against the Scratcher, the Retcher, the Window Monster, the Death Moth, and the Growler. First up is the Scratcher. And before we put the Allosaurus against the Scratcher, because Allosaurus always goes first, like part 1, let me explain a bit about the Scratcher. The Scratcher is a tall, humanoid-like entity. It's grey and blackish in colour, and has very long claws, scratching it against different surfaces to find its prey, not with its eyes because it's blind, but via something or with echolocation. Echolocation is where you make a sound and the sound hits something and it bounces back and you kind of see it with your ears, which is weird, but it's how it's probably going to be able to hunt or try to attack the upcoming dinosaurs. The one thing about this creature is it's actually a bit more durable than anything so far. Not really durable, only being a bit more durable than the Skin Stealer, but that was the most durable thing so far. And it's not as strong as the Skin Stealer, but it's certainly going to be a sturdy creature. It's going to give a run for a lot of these dinosaurs' money. And just like the Skin Stealer, it also has teeth, and probably the exact same type of teeth. This being chronicle teeth, but since it's near its actual mouth, not going down its tummy, it's going to have a harder time reaching its opponent. But because of it being so tall, just like the other creatures, it's probably going to have an easier time trying to bite it, as it is probably still taller than the Skin Stealer. At smallest, it would be the same size as the Skin Stealer, but because I think it's taller, and most people do, I'm just going to make it taller. May I remind you, they're now in level 2, and level 2 is a mix of level 1 and 0. It's built like the level 0, which is basically just a big maze, but as dark as level 1. And this is where the Allosaurus finds itself, with dim lights in a dark room, maze, walking around. And suddenly he sees something. It's the Scratcher, running full pace towards him. He doesn't know what it is until it gets closer, and he realises it looks identical, as far as he knows now, to the Kane's Pixel monster from level 1. And this is when the Allosaurus charges, actually wanting to fight it. Realising that it's similar to the first one he fought, he's almost excited that this is the monster he's going up against. Because it could have been worse, but no, he goes up against one that's pretty easy. And the closer he gets to it, it actually kind of looks like the Della, if not the exact same, just without a head. And the closer he comes, the more he realises that this is not any creature he's fought before. It's slightly taller than some of the creatures he's gone up against so far, with a mouth with chronicle teeth, and it's actually probably faster. But it's certainly as skinny as the others so far, so it goes in for the bite. And the Allosaurus is met with a nice surprise of it's not done. It's surprisingly not cut in half, and it's actually biting back and tearing at the Allosaurus. And the Allosaurus tries to hold it and do the same, and it becomes a slugfest of the Allosaurus holding it, or even scratching it maybe, and biting it, whilst the Scratcher is scratching it and biting it back. And it would literally just be a slugfest of who's going to kill each other first. And obviously it'd be the Allosaurus. I think it would take between 2 to 5 scratches to kill the Allosaurus. But it's definitely going to be hard for it, as it wouldn't have gone up against anything like this. And nothing has bitten and scratched yet. But because it also goes against Allosaurus in its natural environment, which do the same thing as the Scratcher, it's not going to find it awfully hard. It's going to find it a bit harder than the Kane's Pixel monster though. So that's why I'm giving it a 6 out of 10, which is his lowest score yet, but if that's his lowest score, I'm pretty sure he's going to be fine. Next up is the Dilophosaurus, and I think the Dilophosaurus is just barely winning. At first I thought he was going to die, but I think that 6 times out of 10, the Dilophosaurus is just barely winning over the Scratcher, which is not very good for it, as it needs to do better, but, it's how it's evolved, and it's not evolved for the back rooms, so, So Dilophosaurus runs towards the Scratcher, as the Scratcher does the same to him. The Scratcher probably ran towards him first, and they hit each other, I suppose, and the Scratcher pins him down and starts scratching and biting him. And after a while, it would really get to the Dilophosaurus to the point it'd get really weak. And honestly, that's when I thought it would just kind of die. But I can actually see the Dilophosaurus kicking and scratching and biting the air enough that eventually one of its attacks will eventually hit, and I'll give him enough time to get up and either run away or fight back. And if he chooses to fight back, I think there's a chance he could probably win. If he grabs him and tries to bring him down, he's probably going to do so, as he might be a lot smaller than the Allosaurus, but he's only a little bit lighter. So if he thinks that this thing's much smaller, I can handle it, he's going to be in a surprise that the Dilophosaurus is a lot more heavier than he thinks. And he's going to be brought down, and I think Dilophosaurus would waste no time and just go for the head while he's being scratched and trying to be bitten. And I think he would bleed out maybe after the fight, but I still think he would win the fight. And I can still see him winning even if he's just biting the body in half, as that would take a while, but it's less chance of him being bitten, and he's still going to be scratched either way. So I think Dilophosaurus is barely just pulling through, but only if he's able to land one of the hits that he's flailing with. If he isn't able to, I think he ends up dying. But he's also very strong, so there's a chance he could just straight up outdo the Scratcher in strength. But it would definitely be the toughest battle yet. That's why I'm granting him 1 point. Better than none, I suppose. Next up is the Styracosaurus, and Styracosaurus wins 8 out of 10. The same amount I actually gave him for beating the Pixel Monster. Mainly because the fact that the Styracosaurus Sure, the Scratch is harder to defeat than the Pixel Monster, King's Pixel Monster. But we're talking about a 3-ton animal here. It's just going to kill him in probably the exact same way. We just flail around and just step on him or trample him to death. So Styracosaurus moves on. Really no difficulty at all. So 8 points out of 10. Even with the biting and scratching, he's just not going to be able to do much. A bit of scratching on the side maybe in the thrill, but that's not going to make it any worse really. So Styracosaurus moves on. Next up is the Deinonychus, and he's done for. I'm sorry, but he's got no chance. If he had a hard time and even lost to the King's Pixel Monster, he's gonna die to the Scratches, and the Scratch is basically just a harder version with, claws and teeth. It might not be made out of metal, but still. The only thing I could see happening is that he's able to scratch him a bit more, maybe bite him if he's lucky, which is going to hurt him a bit more than it would the King's Pixel Monster, but apart from that, he's got no chance. So, yeah, Scratcher definitely wins. 0 points to Deinonychus. Next up is the Retcher, and it looks a lot worse than it actually is. The Retcher is basically just a big pile of flesh, of humans, may I add, just into a monster. And it's just a pile of flesh. It's literally its whole gimmick. It's just flesh. Just creepy, but apart from that, it's not much different. In fact, it's probably more delicate than human in terms of being, hit. In terms of being scratched, I can see it being a bit more hardy compared to a human, because the fact that it's made of like fat and blubber and bloody tissues, not skin. But yeah, no, this isn't that big of a problem. But we'll see what surprises it has in store for us. Which is the only monster in level 3. Basically an old abandoned factory. And these are the only monsters in it. Okay, let's get started with the Allosaurus. So at a first encounter, the Allosaurus may be a little shocked to see blood just streaming from its body and flesh everywhere, as it wouldn't have any skin. Maybe it adds a bit of bones in there as well, and lungs, brains and stuff, but they probably don't function properly. But it's doing nothing. The worst it's doing is like maybe somehow making its way to the Allosaurus when it's sleeping and scaring the absolute Scheisenhausen out of it. But that it literally won't do anything. Or worst I could see is maybe it pokes the Allosaurus a little too hard with its bone while the Allosaurus is sleeping. Yeah, well, with a bone that it has. Allosaurus is winning 10 out of 10. Yes, Allosaurus first 10 out of 10. It just can't do anything to an animal of this size. It just can't do anything. Next up is Dilophosaurus, and Dilophosaurus is easily winning, maybe a bit harder than the Allosaurus, but I'm giving it an 8 out of 10, not a 9. Mainly because this thing is made of blood, and since it's twice as small as the Allosaurus, it's going to find it a little bit harder to maybe get to the core and rip it open, but yeah, it's about that difficult. This animal is not having a tough time with this monster. Mind you, this monster can bite, but it's probably very slow, and it's basically a zombie, to be honest. It just can't transform you into a zombie. That's it. Yeah, Dilophosaurus wins 8 out of 10. Next, Styracosaurus. Styracosaurus is hitting it once and it's flying all over the walls. Styracosaurus wins 10 out of 10, easy. Next up is obviously Deinonychus, and Deinonychus is just doing the same as the Dilophosaurus, in which it's just going to dive in and it's going to find it a lot more tricky because it's made of blood. It might even start to drown, but after it kills it, it's going to be roughened up and it's going to probably be puking out raw blood and everything. But it still wins. It would take about 2 maybe to 5 of them to defeat the Deinonychus. So Deinonychus wins 5 out of 10 just because of the fact that it's actually going to find a bit of trouble going through this one. So now we've got level 4, and level 4 is just a room full of windows. So next up is the window monster, and all the window monster does, it just a human basically behind a window, and if you're going too close to it, it'll try and pull you in. And it's arguably actually weaker and less durable than human, and we don't know its size, but it seems to be human-sized. So I can't wait for these dinosaurs to have such a hard time going through this one. First up is Allosaurus, and you might get startled when he first gets grabbed, but he's either killing him or running off. So Allosaurus gets a 10 out of 10. Same goes for the Dilophosaurus, same goes for the Styracosaurus, and the Deinonychus may have a bit of trouble because, you know, he's a lot lighter and he might get gripped a bit harder and pulled in, but he's probably going to escape and end up killing him. So just because he's going to have a bit of a tougher time, I'm giving him a 9 out of 10, but he's very close on getting a 10 out of 10. Next up is level 5, and the final level, containing 2 monsters that I actually think could be in the top 3 or top 2 of the hardest monsters yet that the dinosaurs have faced. And the first one might be surprising, but it's the death moth. Basically being a moth that's twice to 4 times the size of a human, which may seem a bit boring and bland and seem as if it can't do much, but it's probably going to be able to lift or at least do some damage to some of these dinosaurs. And it can also spray acid, which is a huge play compared to the rest. And so far the rest haven't been able to do many cool abilities apart from being blood or opening their belly to become a mouth. But this one's able to spray acid, so it can do long range attacks and just fly away. So let's find out how well they do, shall we? And really quickly, I'd just like to mention to please like and subscribe and share and comment, as any comment will be put into consideration and probably will become a future video. As long as it's about becoming a future video, of course. And thank you all for supporting me. And big thanks to my family for supporting me as well. And please enjoy the rest of the video. First up is the Allosaurus, and at first it would see the moth and not really care. To be honest, I would kind of just see it and think of it, wow, that's a big insect or a big moth. I'm gonna leave that alone. Honestly, I'd probably do the same thing. But I'd be much more scared than the Allosaurus in this case. But the moth sees it, and since the moth is a bit more aggressive, it will attack the Allosaurus. And at first the Allosaurus thinks, oh, this is going to be easy, let me just bite it. It gets sprayed by acid straight on the head, and the moth flies away. This will do a pretty decent burn onto the Allosaurus, like a big, like when you put, if you put your hand on a pan while it's on fire, or on the stove or whatever, it's going to burn a lot. And that's probably what's going to happen to the Allosaurus. And the Allosaurus will probably panic and not want to chase it. But if it does end up chasing it, it will probably eventually catch up to the moth and be sprayed on it again and again. But eventually the Allosaurus would learn the pattern and would just dodge them and just destroy the moth. Because the moth is a moth. It might have a hard exoskeleton, but if it takes off one of the moth's wings, it can't fly away, and then it can just crunch it on the floor using its body weight on it with its foot. And even if the Allosaurus runs away, there's a chance they might meet up again, or the moth might just be chasing it, and the Allosaurus would probably have enough and end up killing it. But it certainly probably would end up having some pretty gnarly burns all over its body. And because the Allosaurus isn't built for agility in a room sort of setting, it's going to have a tough time chasing it or running away, and the moth knows this place from the back of its hand. And because the potential of it actually losing, yes, I see the Allosaurus losing like once or twice in every 10 battles, I'm gonna give him a 6 out of 10, which is his lowest yet, but you know, only because of the certain unique situation and or scenario of this battle. Next is the Dilophosaurus, and honestly I think the Dilophosaurus is going to be okay, just because the fact that he's smaller and he's going to probably dodge the first hit, and even if he gets hit he's going to just be irritated and it's going to burn him quite a lot. He's going to be in pain, and the moth will probably either run away or, well, fly away, or just keep on trying to spray it, and by that point, Jesus Christ, I can't speak today, the Dilophosaurus would probably just start running away. And even then, the Dilophosaurus would get enough of running away, just like the Allosaurus probably would, and he'd just bite it. But I don't see that happening often, and I don't even see the Dilophosaurus really losing. Maybe once in every 10 fights, just because of the fact that he's smaller and more agile than the Allosaurus. Honestly, Dilophosaurus is taking it, I want to say 8 times out of 10, but I also want to say 9 times out of 10. I already planned this out, and I don't tell myself, I go over what the dinosaurs are like and how are they doing in every situation, but I think Yeah, it would be an 8 out of 10 just because of the fact that he could actually lose. Next up is the Styracosaurus, and he's also having a 6 out of 10 just like the Allosaurus. It's going to be harder to kill the moth, but he's going to take less damage from the moth because of the thrill. It's going to protect him. It's still going to burn him quite a bit. It's on the verge of becoming a 5 out of 10. It's a smaller 6 out of 10 than the Allosaurus is, but it's still a 6 out of 10 because of the fact that he's, not going to get that damaged by the acid, and the moth is going to do nothing to the Styracosaurus realistically. The only thing that the moth can do is just go up above and just spam his acid, and even then the Styracosaurus would be smart enough to eventually run away, but one hit and the moth is completely dead. He'll be a splat moth on the wall, I suppose. Next up is the Deinonychus, or Deinonychus, whichever one you would want to say, and when I say barely, I mean just barely taking 9th instead of 9 instead of 8 points, sorry. And yeah, I mean just barely, because there's 3 things that he has over the other dinosaurs. The first one being that he can jump. I know the others can jump as well, just not as well. The Deinonychus is a way better jumper as far as I'm concerned, and would be able to jump to the moth's height no matter what he does. And even if the moth barely flies too high for the Deinonychus could still use the wall and bounce off of that. And the Deinonychus would probably eventually figure that out. So there's the fact that it could probably climb just a little bit with its sickle. That's the second thing. It has a sickle. So even if it doesn't get the moth properly, if it digs its sickle into one of its wings or into its body, it's going to latch on or break the wing, and it's just going to kill it there and then. It won't have a hard time dealing with the moth in that case. So chasing it down and actually getting to it won't be a problem, unlike the Cryolophosaurus. That's why I'm giving him the 9. And the third thing is the fact that he could actually dodge every single attack from the moth. Maybe at first he might be surprised by the moth and he might get hit by the acid the first or second time, but he'd start running at that case, and I don't see him actually dying. The only way I see him dying is if the moth goes down immediately from the ceiling, wraps his wing around his body, stops him from moving, and just spams the acid over his head and body, killing him there and then. But that's just not going to happen because the moth's not going to think the Deinonychus is that dangerous. So honestly, I'm giving the Deinonychus a 9 out of 10. But the reason I'm not giving him 10 out of 10 is the fact that he could still get hurt. So the Deinonychus moves on with a 9 out of 10. Next up, and the final one to the series, but maybe not the last series, it's the Growler. And it's by far the strongest one yet. And durable. As twice as strong as the Skin Stealer, and a lot more durable than the Scratcher. This thing is made out of metal rods and have been said to have torn through people. So it's certainly a hardy monster or beast. And this thing basically has no weaknesses, and it's just incredibly, and I say incredibly stupid. It's its only main proper weakness, really. So if there's a big dinosaur that can outsmart it, there's a good chance it might win. But there's also a low chance due to it having very tough exterior, being made out of metal rods. So we'll see how it does, I suppose. So first up is the Allosaurus. And the Allosaurus actually might do better than you'd think. I think it might go like this. They see each other and the Growler immediately attacks. And the Allosaurus hasn't seen anything remotely like this. The only thing sort of like this was the Hound. And only because this thing seems to be on all fours. Because it's made out of metal rods, you can't really tell what's happening. It's just a big mess of flashy, colourful rods. And the Allosaurus does the reasonable thing and fight. The Allosaurus kind of knows he has no choice at this point, as he's had to fight every other opponent. So they both go rushing at each other. And immediately, the Allosaurus gets rushed by a monster made of metal pipes. It probably bursts through the skin or some places on the Allosaurus' skin and starts making the Allosaurus breathe. The Allosaurus in a panic would probably try and thrash it out the way and probably wouldn't work, and the Allosaurus would just run away. Luckily, since Allosaurus is a big animal on 2 limbs, he's probably going to be able to run faster. But the Growler lives here, so they might be on each other's tail. Oh well, the Growler might be on the Allosaurus' tail. But I think after a while, the Allosaurus would be forced to stop and fight, and the Growler would just be there ready to fight. And honestly, if Allosaurus does coordinated attacks and is able to grab it, which won't be an easy task since it is made out of metal rods, but if it's able to grab it and rip it up, it's probably going to win. After all, it's durable, it's strong, but it's stupid and doesn't care about how bad it gets hurt or where it gets hurt. So as long as the Allosaurus keeps on targeting the same area, he might just end up cutting in half and winning. So I think with extreme difficulty, he moves on with only 2 points. Just because of the fact that he could die 4 out of 10 times. So the Growler does lose, but he has did well, and ended up hurting the Allosaurus quite a bit. Next up is the Styracosaurus. And the Styracosaurus is not taking it easily, but he's probably going to win. And this because of the fact that he's 3 tons. That's almost 3 times the amount-ish of the Allosaurus, or 3 times the amount of the Dilophosaurus, I should say. And at first they're both going to rush at each other, and before the Growler knows it, he's not sent flying, definitely not sent flying, but he's sent back a little from the 3-ton animal hitting him. And then it'll just be both of them running into each other, because the Styracosaurus just keep on running into him, and he'll eventually kind of just hit him to the point that metal pipes just come out of him every so often, to the point there's not much of him left. And the Styracosaurus will just have to keep fighting. Honestly, if the Styracosaurus just keeps going over and over again, he's just going to eventually overpower the Growler. But the Growler's definitely no pushover, and it's probably going to tear the skin of the Styracosaurus, and the Styracosaurus is going to come out with extremely painful gashes and everything everywhere in him. And because of the fact that the Styracosaurus is going to be in so much pain after the fight, because this metal rod's been going through his skin, I'm going to have to give him a 4 out of 10. So next up is the Dilophosaurus. And how well is the Dilophosaurus going to do? Well, he's done for. He might weigh a similar amount to the Allosaurus, so he might be able to, at first, not overwhelm, but stay on par with the Growler. He's just too small, and his whole body could probably be rushed down by the Growler, and the Growler's made out of metal pipes, so he's just going to go straight through the Dilophosaurus, and Dilophosaurus isn't going to have any chance. So for the last battle, the Dilophosaurus is going to have his first 0. And what about the Deinonychus? Well, actually, you might be surprised for me to say he loses. Yeah, no, he has no chance. He might be able to realise that he's dumb and run away and escape, and somehow make his way around the Growler. But there's no way he's winning. It's not even possible. If I could, I'd give him a -20, but that wouldn't be fair. So the Deinonychus does not win and takes his 3rd loss, but thankfully his last. So, let's find out who actually ends up winning this tournament. Please remember to like, share, subscribe and comment. Thank you. I'm sure you're all curious to find out who's in last and who's in first. And obviously you all want to hear who's in first, but I'm going to start with last. So it's more fun. And in last, with almost half as many points as the person in first, it's the Deinonychus, with around 38. He got 0 at first, and then he got 6, and then he got 6 again, and he got 3, and he got another 0, a 5, and then 2 9s in a row, which was pretty cool, and then he got a 0. And then there's the Dilophosaurus in 3rd with 57 points, so actually not too far behind, being only 10 points behind the person in 2nd, or dinosaur in 2nd. He got a 2, and then an 8, a 9, a 7, a 1, an 8, a 10, an 8, and then his first ever and last score, which was a 0. Which wasn't the best, but 3rd is better than last, I suppose. In 2nd, with 67 points, it's the one and only Allosaurus, starting off with 7 points, then getting a double 9, an 8, a 6, a double 10, a 6, and then a 2. The last bit is really the only thing that screwed him up, as in winner, just being 4 points ahead of the person in second, it's the Styracosaurus with 71 points, making on to the 70s area. With 8, a 10, then a 6, a 9, a 8, a double 10, a 6, and then a 4, which is pretty good. So overall, they all did pretty well, but the Styracosaurus is the best, and is the winner. And what does he win? Let's just say he wins on being in another video. Just like the Dilophosaurus. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't hold it back no more. The Dilophosaurus will be going up against the grizzly bear in my next video, which I think is going to be awesome. So I hope you all see me then. And until then, goodbye.